Hi, I'm Eileen Bild, and I am with Untitled Talk. Today I have Reverend Ariel Patricia and Kathleen O'Keefe Canavos on my show. Reverend Ariel Patricia is CEO and founder of Sacred Stories Media, a conscious online media network which includes Sacred Stories Publishing, an award-winning book publishing and marketing company. Garnet Press, a self-publishing division, Sacred You, an online course division, podcasting, and the Owl magazine. Ariel is the author of 2 books and co-author of 3 books, including her newest, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. You can find out more at sacredstoriesmedia.com. And then I also have Kathleen O'Keefe Canavos, 3 times breast cancer survivor. She taught psychology at USF, Fort Myers branch, hosts the Dreaming Healing Show on Dreams Vision 7 radio network, and the Canavos video show, is AKA the Queen of Dreams. She's a PR guru, internationally syndicated columnist for Biz Catalyst 360 magazine, TV producer, host, author, lecturer, and internationally award-winning best-selling co-author of Chaos to Clarity, Crappy to Happy, Dreams That Can Save Your Life, and Surviving Cancerland. Seen on Dr. Oz and The Doctors. Kat promotes patient advocacy and connecting with inner guidance for success in health, wealth, and relationships. You can find her at KathleenO'KeefeCanavos.com and thequeenofdreams.com. So welcome to Ariel and Kat. And I want to start this interview with the foreword that was written by James Redfield. And he says, this book is a seminar about this emerging truth. When the heart is opened through prayer and meditation, the wounded chatter of our thoughts and emotions can be let go of, revealing a love-based, heart-opening joy and mystical peace.
With the title or something? I said, I don't know, it needs to be something like, I don't know, Crappy to Happy. She goes, oh my God, I love that. She goes, so we tried that on my daughters and they loved the title, so it became Crappy to Happy.
Ariel?
Well, Kat, hold the book up first.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It is behind
the
me right there. And here's the book, Crappy to Happy. Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. It's hard to imagine crappy and joy going together, but hey, we do it in this book.
Yeah, it's just such a great book. So yeah, it's the second book in the series. Chaos to Clarity came out last year, and that was just such an incredibly beautiful process. Bringing together, we have 30 authors in both books from around the world. And Eileen, you were in Chaos to Clarity. So yes. It's, hopefully you can vouch for this, but it's really just such a beautiful process. When people share their stories, they share their connections, they share the hero or heroine's journey they've gone through. And it's really inspirational. So we did Chaos to Clarity, and we knew we wanted to do a second book, and I think three is the magic number. I'd like to do a third as well, but we just feel like that was so incredible, and we knew there were more stories to be told, and we wanted to keep the hero or heroine's journey. We wanted that journey that we all go on in different ways, but we wanted to also add a little more not levity, but just bring more of it into the joy, a focus of the joy. And that's how, the focus on, well, how do we do that? And we were playing with words, as Kat said, and titles, and Crappy to Happy just came out. And we just knew that was the title.
That was it. Yeah, that's great. And, it's amazing how many people are willing to tell their story, and how much just being able to step fully into their experience and find a way to find that joy and or the happiness, or even come to that inner peace as part of that journey. So each of you have also had your own contribution to the book as well. And Ariel, you mentioned that you were a joy chaser. What is that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey, and for people who aren't familiar with the series, Kat and I really, when we started the series, we really wanted to say, well, what unique voices are we bringing, or why or how should we do an anthology? And then we said, well, really, who are we and what are we all about? And I'm an ordained interfaith minister, and Kat has a background in psychology. And so we said, well, there's our voices. Right, there's our voices. So in addition to the foreword in this book by James Redfield, for those who don't know, he's a best-selling author of The Celestine Prophecy. I write kind of an intro on the spirituality of joy, and Kat writes on the psychology of joy. And for me, the spirituality, what I talk about is, yes, I was a joy chaser. I was someone who went through, like many people, this life-changing event when I turned 50, and it really set me on a seeker's journey. That's why I went into seminary. My whole life changed at that point. And I was chasing joy. I just wanted to feel better. And I thought, well, if I take another class, or I go on another journey, or I do this, or this, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be joyful. And my journey took me to where I realized I was a joy chaser. I think many people were joy chasers, and I was exhausted. I had exhausted a lot of finances. I had seen a lot, learned a lot, and it brought me to a place. But where it really brought me was almost back, to myself, and understanding more of the inner journey, versus the outer journey. And I talk about that in the introduction, the spirituality of joy, and really what joy is from a spiritual perspective.
Right. So it sounds like your journey, you were looking for it out here, and every time you thought you had it, it was like, where's the joy, right? Where is it? And it wasn't until you went in and started to really assess what was blocking that joy that you discovered. That's beautiful. So Kathleen, you say joy gives us the power to enjoy life's hardships without becoming hardened. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who would listen to that statement and feel that life has hardened them. So I'd love to hear your ideas, insights, thoughts about how through those hardships, whether it's cancer or some kind of trauma, how can people find that joy? What did you do for yourself in order to not be hardened?
Well, I think it's really hard. It's really important not to get hard. And life, has a way of throwing you down on the ground. And when you think you're about ready to get back up, something else, knocks you down. And so the whole thing that Ariel and I were talking about in the book was how to kind of pull yourself back up by your bootstraps and laugh while you're doing it. Find that inner joy. Happiness is something that you get from outside. Something happens and it makes you happy. But joy is something that you embrace from within. And you use it almost like a double-edged sword. And it can scare away those things that might make you hardened. And so I think one of the most important aspects of this book is something that James Redfield pointed to after he read the book. And that's how all of these stories are about the art of the comeback. You know, so many of us in life have hardships. We are in that crappy storm, and we all have crappy storms, but how did you get out? That's what we want to know. How did you get out and not be hardened and find that joy within yourself and carry that joy on to the next journey? Because life is just a series of journeys until the day you die. Then your journey goes somewhere else. But as long as you're on the earth, you're going to be in a journey. It's part of the hero's journey, is going from one journey to the next. So what I found is there's actually 4 skills that we can use to help us remain joyful within our life, no matter what happens. And those 4 skills are resilience, being resilient in the face of crappy, not letting us knock us down and keep us down, getting back up. Our outlook. Throughout the book, I talk about the importance of laughing and laughter, even when you've got really bad news. And I talk about how my friend in the book, Petronelle, would always laugh when she would get these really dire doctor reports. Oh, I'm going blind. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, but I've still got my fingers and I can learn Braille. And I remember looking at her horrified going, the doctors told you you're going to go blind and you're laughing? And she goes, yeah, you just have to laugh about stuff like that. Keep going. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? She's right. And so when you run into people who have this positive outlook and they're laughing, no matter how dire it is, you can't help it. You start laughing with them. And then you pay attention to joy in your life. You don't dwell on the crappy. You start paying attention to the happy. That's your focus. Yeah, crappy's over here, but I really want to focus on happy. And finally, generosity. You're going to get out of life what you give. And so one of the things Ariel and I try to give the reader is a lifeboat to hold on to when they're in the depths of crappy, to find that umbrella to get under and wait for the sun, which is the happy. So by being generous, you're going to get back what you give out in life. And every single story in this book gives back. Every single story in this book gives back to the reader. So, and we're very proud of that. We were looking for that. And fortunately, we have a whole book full of those kind of generous stories.
That's awesome. And, you talked about the element of being able to be happy through that crappy. And so many people might think, but I can't. I mean, it's like they're so connected to that disease or that experience. And I like to think, you said we're a series of journeys. I like to say we're also a series of conversations. So through those journeys, we have conversations with ourselves, with others, with whatever that power that be that might be bigger than us. And I think if more people maybe, and you could agree with me or not, I mean, tell me what you think, that if we can communicate more with that inner self as you did, Ariel, and I'm sure you did the same thing, Kathleen, that we can kind of separate from that attachment to whatever it is we're going through and find a way to bring that joy through, so then we can have a more beautiful experience, even through, like your friend, even through the challenges. Would you agree, Ariel, that that's something that would be a benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because at least part of my journey, I think that, and I'm sure if it was mine, it's many others, I think we think that we somehow have to give, the pain or the crappy, it's kind of its due, a certain level of attention, because if not, then it's almost like, well, like we don't care enough, or we're not, we don't really understand it enough, or all these things I think that we tell ourselves that keep a focus. And how could you, for Petronel's example, how could you be told, people think you're mad, that you're going blind, and somehow you can laugh at that. And what I found, and completely agreeing with Kat and Petronel, is that, and I just like to say to everybody listening, it's okay not to give the pain or the crappy or the what's happening that due. It doesn't need your attention. It's okay to choose to still keep a positive outlook of where you put your attention is not on the pain. And it's interesting because I do think that there is a part of the human psyche that somehow thinks we need to do that, or that has to happen first. And we don't. We really don't. And one of the things that I talk about in the spirituality of joy that just kind of completes, like how do you get to that point? How does Petronel, laugh in the face of blindness? How do people really be able to come out and be joyful regardless of what has happened, or bring them to a place of joy? And for me, and from a spiritual perspective, it's about that deeper knowing, that deeper understanding that yes, we are on the journey, yes, we are in the conversation, and that all is ultimately well. And that is that place, as Kat said, that is that place that it isn't the outward happy, but it's that inner joy. Because even if we don't know all the answers, we know that we are supported, whether it's forces beyond that we can see, or just within ourselves, or as Kat mentioned, the art of the comeback, or just to be able to pick up a book like Happy to Happy and read about other people and see yourself in their experiences, or be inspired and receive hope that others have moved through things, and you can take tips and tricks and learn to laugh in the face of fear. That brings us, that helps us get to that deeper place of knowing, and that's where our strength is, and that's where the joy is. So
I love that, and that brings me to something else that I pulled out of the book, because you said a warrior that was unsettled, and you wanted to remember to. I want to know my soul is part of a poem you have in the book. And I think that connects to that knowing part of you that doesn't have to be sought out. It's just already there, and to open ourselves up to allowing, then the healing can pretty much automatically take place. So Kathleen, you also said joy is a state of mind that animates our being, and that's kind of along the same mindset of there's a part of us that just has this innate knowing, understanding, belief, connection that I think in some ways as we grow up, we kind of lose that awareness of. And when we go through a trauma of some sort, it can activate and allow that awareness to come to the surface. So with you being a breast cancer survivor, and I know a lot of people have that challenge, including my sister and my mom both had that. So I understand. What would you say was like that point where you awakened to that knowing and that part of you that was okay with that process, that journey, and yet you were able to take yourself to the point where the healing occurred, and here you are today, and looking beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
So what would you say was that turning point for you?
I really think that turning point was when I surrendered. When I reached a point where I just said, you know what, I just can't do this by myself anymore. There's got to be a higher power, a higher something that can help take control of this because I can't do this alone. And it was at that point when I got that aha moment with that surrender that suddenly I was able to tap into my inner child again, who is always joyful. Our inner children are always joyful. They might cry for a few minutes, but even if you watch a young child, oh, they're crying because they lost that toy, and then they find the toy and there's this joy and they're happy and they're dancing and everything, and it's all forgotten. It's all forgotten. They haven't learned to be a victim yet and carry it around with them. And so I think at some point we need to let go and let our higher power, whatever that might be, and learn to embrace that inner child in us again. And there's a section in the book, in the back, called If I Knew Then What I Know Now. And one of the sections I really loved was by Dr. Ann Worth. It's really short. Can I read that really quickly?
Absolutely, yes. Please do.
It's called, and it fits in with the question that you asked me, and it says, God's love broke the lock. And she says, for many years, I locked my heart and withheld myself physically and emotionally from those who would hurt me. Try as I might, I couldn't forgive them or myself on my own. God made a way for me to see the hurt through his eyes. And I realized that every person involved was simply a lost and wounded human being. When God's love broke the lock on my heart, forgiveness flowed out to them and me. Now, with God's help, I don't have to let the sun set on my anger anymore.
Mm. Wow.
So it's that letting go, letting God, trusting in a higher power, trusting in yourself, embracing your inner child, and laughing in the face of even terror. When you're so scared, you don't know what else to do, just laugh. You'd be amazed at how empowering it is.
I'm sure it's empowering, but I'm also sure it's a little uncomfortable because, like Ariel was saying, if we laugh, if we have joy, if we feel peace, a part of us is saying, but wait a minute, I can't do that. I don't have the right. And so, Ariel, what would you say is the trick to overcoming that part of us that you talked about and stopping us from being able to laugh and have that joy and peace when there's crappy things going on in our life?
Yeah. No, I it's interesting because I think that many people, we're not raised, whether it's society or our families, culturally, to be okay with not giving the devil its due. You know what I mean? I mean, we're taught, right? It's almost within most of us, we're taught. And so it's almost an unlearning process. And the journey, I think, is what allows us those opportunities. So even if the journey is crappy or starts out crappy, there's so much within the journey that we receive information from, we receive inspiration from, we receive, even this conversation, I hope is helpful to people, because people go, oh, okay, I get it, right? So as we move through life and as we have these experiences, and I'm all about the experience, I think it's important to have these experiences. And even the authors in the book, every one of them will tell you that that they found the gifts in all of the experiences, right? So I think when we can look at something, in answer to your question, when we can look at the experience and we can see it as an experience for a deeper level of emotion, a deeper level of connection, a deeper level of service or understanding, and not look at it as kind of the boogeyman that Kat talks about in some of the stories, but see it as an opportunity for us to have a deeper experience, then we can release, the learning that we've through society or culture or whatever. We can release it. We don't have to give it its power. We can say, you can go sit down now. I got this, and that allows us to show up in a way that we can laugh at something, or we can tune into the higher power. In the book, it's so cool because there are some very religious oriented stories where people surrender, and they talk about surrendering to Jesus. There are stories where the person was the inner journey within themselves. There are stories that are more spiritual in nature, and there's everything, because everybody's experience is their own experience, and every experience is an experience of our shared humanity that we have.
Right.
So I guess that's the answer. The answer is that not to be afraid of anything, because it is an experience on your journey. It's another conversation in your life. And through those deeper experiences, you if you can look at them as those opportunities, you take the power away from the pain, you take the power away from what scares you take the power away from what you maybe have been taught. And you can thank it, bless it, ask it to sit down, because you're moving forward, on your journey.
I think that's key, because you said in one part of the book that you had a yearning for connection. So as you were talking, I'm kind of connecting that part that you've talked about with wanting to remember, going deep into the soul, and not allowing that pain and the experience to have power over the individual, which is the self that's going through the experience, and find that connection. I think and this may be that turning point you had, Kathleen, where when you realized that you could heal and you had the power, that's when that connection occurred. And so, Ariel, I'll ask you the same question. Can you share where you believe that turning point was for you in your story?
Yeah. Well, I share that story. It's really interesting. And I think that this is what's so beautiful about Crappy to Happy and Chaos to Clarity as well, because it's the connection, right? It's in the experience. We do have connection. So whether it's with ourselves, higher power, other people, through stories. But one of the stories I share is a past life regression that I experienced because I became a seeker. I was very hurt. I had a lot of pain, and I was seeking. And I lead you through my past life experiences in one of the stories. And I had two past life experiences that I share, and in a lives between lives experience in there as well. But the second past life experience I share, what happens is I'm a young mother in like the 1800s in Boston, and I'm giving birth, and I go, the whole thing is happening. And as I give birth to the son, and I'm very excited, the midwife says, would you like to see your husband? And I said, yes, right? Yes, of course I want to see my husband. And he comes in, and I look in his face, and it's my ex-husband in this lifetime was my husband in that lifetime. And I was so freaked out. I was like, because I was still in a very much of a place of pain, and I was like, no, like this can't be happening. And I was so upset and mad because I'm like, no, like I already did that. It didn't work out. I don't want to go back and find out, And another past life, I grew old, and I had my family, and I was looking into the eyes of a woman that I loved. I was actually a man in one of the past lives. But I share these experiences in kind of great detail. But what happened in that, what was shown to me, it's not even the particular life. It was what I realized afterwards was that I had experienced connection, lasting love, and I could see kind of that larger picture, and I wasn't so hyper focused on the particular pain I was in at the time. It actually freed me up when I was able to experience, even if it was the husband in this lifetime, one of the stories that I wasn't happy with at the time. It gave me that larger framework and that larger connection, and in there I found hope. And strength, and I believe that's what all the stories in Crappy to Happy do, and in different ways they do that for the reader and for all of us.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Those are amazing stories. And as you were sharing that, I was thinking, through those experiences, I would assume that it's helped you with everyday life. So, Kathleen, having healed from, survived the breast cancer and any other life experiences that you may have had that even broadened the awakening more, how has that helped you in your daily life since those experiences?
Well, it kind of puts crappy into perspective.
Okay.
Suddenly, things that I thought were just so devastating aren't so bad anymore. You know, after you survive recurrence, that's the 9 by 11 centimeter, that's basically terminal, and you survive it. I wouldn't venture to say that I feel that nothing could ever take me down, like even an elephant gun, but suddenly things aren't as bad. Like when people say to me, oh, you know, my car won't start and it's like, yeah. You know, and so that's what happens after you read this book and you read these stories in here. One of the things you realize is basically what Ariel was talking about. See, in her story, she went through lifetime to lifetime learning the lessons on a grand scale. In this book, a lot of these people went from lesson to lesson within this lifetime on a smaller scale. So it's the stories in here are as grandiose as you'd like for them to be, to show you how important our crappy lessons are, or how small those crappy lessons are. But the bottom line is, no storm lasts forever. And it is those storms that actually water the ground, feed the plants, make the flowers bloom.
I love that. Yeah. Well, it's also planting the seeds to be able to nurture those, and part of that is, you know, to nurture the self. Kat, you do dream interpretation, and it was in a dream that you learned of the last, I believe it was the last diagnosis that you had for your cancer. I'd love to hear a little bit about that. You know, how important you feel dreams are in our lives, and how it pretty much saved your life.
Well, I really believe we're all born with spirit guides and guardian angels. We're their job, and they really take that job seriously. And I swear my guardian angels have to pull straws every morning. It's like, okay, who's got her today? And my dreams actually diagnosed my breast cancer all 3 times. When the medical community and the tests on which they relied missed it. So it shows us, I believe that shows us we have a connection to our higher power, and our dreams are sacred doorways to the divine. And so when we get in touch with our inner selves, whether it's through past lives or this life or crises, whatever crappy we went through, I believe that we start to create conversations with our spirit guides and our guardian angels, who are always there for us when we're in that storm. And so no matter how bad that storm might be, no matter how hard that wind is blowing, we can hang on to the fact that we are not going to die until it's our time, not 1 minute before. Up until then, we may not feel it, but there are wings around us that are keeping us safe.
I can agree with that. I have felt that before, and I'm sure a lot of people have as well. So this has been awesome, ladies. I love the information you shared, and the stories in the book that are yet to be read by those who are listening. It seems like it's very inspirational and could be life-changing for many others, and not just for those who are in the book. So to close out, I'd like some words of wisdom from each of you to leave those who are watching and listening, to give them hope and to let them know that if they are having a crappy day, a crappy month, a crappy year, which I think a lot of people are having, that, you know, there is the ability for happiness. So Ariel, I'll let you start.
I think what I'd like the readers to, or the listeners to take from this, and hopefully I'd love for you to read Crappy to Happy, read Chaos to Clarity. The power really is, I believe, in the connection. You know, we're not alone. You know, I mean, I said this when we talked about Chaos to Clarity, but Crappy to Happy just completely reinforces that. We're not alone. I mean, it's, whether it is our angels, our guides, as Kat says, and I agree with that completely, whether it's the power of community, whether it is the power of the stories in the book, where you can connect and see yourself or receive inspiration from another's experience. It really is we have a shared heart, or the human family and the greater world. We really are all in this together. I mean, I think if nothing else, we can hopefully agree on that at this point, that we are in this together. So I think my words of wisdom would always be to find your connection, and to always kind of settle within, because everything you need is there, and then you have everything around you to support you as well. And even if it feels like no one else could ever understand what you're going through, I'd say pick up Crappy to Happy, or pick up Chaos to Clarity, because I can guarantee you that you will read a story that will be similar to yours, or an emotion that people felt that will be similar to yours, and in that you can draw strength and hope and inspiration.
Thank you. And where can people find you?
SacredStoriesMedia.com, SacredStoriesPublishing.com, and Crappy to Happy. Kat, hold it up again. I love our book so much. I just I just love it. I love the whole vibe. I love the umbrella. I love, and what it says on the cover is true stories, which they are, of grit, grace, and love. And I think that really captures, I think, the energy, the vibe of what Kat and I have been sharing, and what our authors share, because it takes a little bit of grit, and we hope it takes a whole lot of grace. That's the connection and the support we have, and then and then there's always, sprinkle it with some love, and and we're all going to be okay.
That sounds wonderful. And then Kathleen, your words of wisdom.
Learn to laugh till it heals. And at first, if you don't have that skill, and it is a skill, it is a learned skill, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Just laugh, because laughter's contagious, and not only will the people around you catch it, but you'll start to catch it yourself, and it releases endorphins in our bodies that are our natural happy pills. So when you're faced with something that's really frightening, or you're faced with something that's crappy, just laugh. That old saying, laugh it off.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing thing when you finally learn how to do that. People go, how can you laugh like that? How can you laugh at this? And I'll just tell them, try it. You might like it.
That's wonderful. And then where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, KathleenO'KeefeCannabis.com, or you can just type in thequeenofdreams.com, and I'll come up. And Crappy to Happy's on my website. Chaos to Clarity is there, and you can actually go down underneath the book and click on it. And on my radio show, Dreams That Can Save Your, that's the book, Dreaming Healing, we've got commercials on that radio network. And so the commercial from the book is under the book. You can click it and listen to the commercial to see if it's something that you'll love, and I know you will.
Yes, thank you. Well, ladies, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you. And we will definitely catch up again soon. And I wish you both a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.